One particular repeating prompt in the rhetorical synthesis problems are asking you to compare or find the similarity between two different people, two different things, or occasionally their differences. So in this case, let's see an example. The student wants to compare two women's contributions to the march in Washington. So when we look at this question, we want to define what we're comparing, and very particularly, not just two women. In this case, we're comparing their contributions to the march in Washington. So the next step generally is to go ahead and read the bullet points. African American women played prominent roles in the civil rights movement, including at the famous 1963 March on Washington. That's some background. Civil rights activist Anna Hedgeman, one of the march's organizers, was a political advisor who had worked for President Truman. Civil rights activist Daisy Bates was a well-known journalist and advocate for school desegregation. So by the way, this outlines the two different people in these bullet points, but this is their careers, their history, not necessarily what we need to compare. We need to compare their contributions to the march in Washington. So let's keep reading. Hedgeman worked behind the scenes to make sure a woman was included in the lineup of speakers at the march. Okay, so this is what one of their contributions at the march was. Bates was the sole woman to speak, delivering a brief but memorable address to the cheering crowd. This, again, was the other woman's contribution to the march. These are the two bullet points where we can compare their contributions to the march, which is the question. So let's take a look at the answers, because the correct answer will have to include those 2 points. Hedgeman and Bates contributed to the march in different ways. Okay, that's true. Bates, for example, delivered a brief but memorable address. Okay, not terrible. They did contribute in different ways, and they tell us how Bates contributed to the march, but it doesn't say anything about Hedgeman. So I don't believe this is going to be the right answer. This is a partial analysis, not including the two different bullet points that say what each contributions to the march was. Hedgeman worked in politics and helped organize the march, while Bates was a journalist and school desegregation advocate. So this is a little bit about what Hedgeman did to help with the march and some general information, but it does not say what both bullet points are in their contributions to the march for comparison purposes. They both have to be in the answer. Although Hedgeman worked behind the scenes to make sure one speaker was included, okay, yep, Bates was the sole woman to speak at the march. That is both of their contributions to the march, and they're being compared with the contrasting transition. C is the correct answer to the question. Many African American women, including Bates and Hedgeman, fought for civil rights, but only one spoke at the march. Again, this is not really their contribution to the march, this part, and it doesn't even tell us which one spoke at the march. So this is definitely not the right answer. Again, we've got to find the two bullet points that highlight exactly what we're comparing, and they have to both be included in the correct answer. Let's look at another example. In this case, the student wants to emphasize a similarity between two things. So again, same idea. It's a comparison, a similarity, a difference, and we want to identify what those things are. The two ways a magnificent frigate bird acquires food. Okay, so we should have some information how it acquires food, and we want to focus on the similarity. So let's look at the bullet points above. Now we read them. The magnificent frigate bird is a species of bird that feeds mainly on fish, tuna, squid, and other small sea animals. That's background information. It is unusual among seabirds in that it doesn't dive in the water for prey. Okay, so this is something about it may be a broader claim related to our answer. The similarity we want to focus on. Not sure yet. One way it acquires food is by using its hook. So one way, this is telling us one way it acquires food, by using its hook-tipped bill to snatch prey from the surface of the water. Another way, so this is going to be the second way it acquires food, which is what we want to know, by taking from weaker birds by force. So what's true between those? It never dives into the water. Sort of the theme or larger claim and point is usually at the end of the bullet point before the two evidence or examples that we need to focus on. So let's find an answer that shows they're similar because the two ways do not require diving into the water for food. One is by snatching the prey from the surface. The other is snatching it from other birds. A magnificent frigate bird never dives into the water. Never is extreme, so let's just keep an eye on that. Instead, using its hook-tipped bill to snatch prey from the surface. Okay, that is only one of the ways, but it doesn't tell us the other way, so that's not going to be a similarity or a comparison, not the right answer. And never is extreme. Always watch out for extreme language. B, neither of a magnificent frigate bird's two ways of acquiring food requires the bird to dive into the water. That is a similarity. That is true, but it's not really emphasizing that similarity. It's not showing what the two ways are. Possibility, I don't think that's ultimately going to be the answer, right? We probably want a statement like that, but we want to include the two different examples. Let's look at the other answer choices. Of the magnificent frigate bird's two ways of acquiring food, only one is known as kleptoparasitism. Okay, that is not really relevant and not a similarity. Not doing a comparison there. In addition to snatching prey from the water with its hook-tipped bill, a magnificent frigate bird takes food from other birds by force. That is the two bullet points. It snatches its prey from the water. That's one way. It takes foods from the other birds by force. But is that drawing a comparison? Is the better answer here going to be, so this question is a little bit harder, is the better answer going to be the two examples, or is it going to be the summary of what those two examples more generally represent? Doesn't dive into the water for prey. Because technically that is the similarity. This is just saying the two ways, repeating the facts. B is actually indicating what the similarity is. Neither ways require diving into the water. I prefer an answer that has both examples and the summary within it. But that combined answer of the summary of the idea supported by these two examples, which we often see as the correct format for answer choices on this section, is not an option on the answer choices. I either have to choose the summary or the two examples. And between that, the summary that identifies the similarity is the better answer than just the straight examples or evidence. The correct answer is B.